Good evening and welcome to another video at Rockstar UK. Today, I'm excited. So, we got the engine on the bench. Well, it's actually in my dining room. Nice little box. So I've got a 61mm taida bore kit. This should fit straight onto your GY6 engine. These have been designed very similar to the NCY kit, so that you can take everything off and it should just bolt straight back on. Now, being a 61mm piston, it should take you up to 171cc. Now obviously that will vary depending on what head you're using, etc. But I'm going to be using the stock head, and then eventually I'll get the taida 61mm big valve head. Now you've got two gaskets that come in this kit. You get a high compression and a low compression. So you get a thick and a thin basically. So I'm going to be using the high compression kit. Yeah, so let's jump straight into it. Right, so come around here. So as you can see, for the purpose of this video I've had to put the flywheel back on because it's got some timing marks on it which you need to reference whilst you're doing this. I'll show you that in close up when we get to that part. But first of all, there's a series of M6 8mm socket bolts that have got to come off. So we've got to take the rocker cover gasket off first. Be careful, you may get some residual oil come out of here. So just put a cloth down or something. But this, to me, this is white clean stuff, so nice and simple. Also, there's like an 8mm bolt here. And there's a couple on this side, but you've also got the tensioner to do as well. But we'll get to that in a bit. All right.
When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, "You do that."
Right, so when you're doing this,
forget the money.
This seal along here, just make sure it's in good condition because you may need to replace it. This one, well, I've had it off recently and I actually just wiped it with some oil, so I know that that's a nice good gasket. Now, that's really clean. You can see in there? That's very clean, which is obviously what you expect to see. So, get on with the next bit. So now we've got the valve cover off, which we just put to one side, and the bolts. Now these are 12mm, I believe. Let's just grab a 12mm socket. Yep, so they're 12mm M8s. So we undo all four of them, and before we do that, if you just crack off this little screw here, because what that does is that's what basically how you do your chain tensioner, and then you can take these two out. But if you crack that off first, because you'll see, like in the Ruckus video, they also say to crack it off first, because if you take it all off in one go, you may need to clamp this in a vise just to be able to undo that. So easy enough, crack that off first, use the bolts that are already there, undo them, take the chain tensioner out, and that'll slacken this off so that we can take the cam followers out. Right, so with this little screw that I mentioned earlier, I just had to give it a screwdriver on the top, give it a tap with a hammer. That's like, it like shocks the bolt, so anything that might be binding it up, for example Loctite, it breaks that seal, and I can take it out then. Be careful of the O-ring seal that's in there as well, because that needs to stay in there. And you can just put it back in there finger tight, and we can whip that off.
It's so important to consider this question. What do I desire?
So, as you can see on this, this is your chain tensioner. It's spring loaded, but you have to wind it in. So undo this, and as you literally put like a screwdriver in there and turn it, it pulls that plunger down. So yeah, little gasket there. Obviously in your taida kit you get another one of these little gaskets. So next bit, pull the head off, undo these, keep the washers, and also try to keep these in the order in which they came off. So put them on your cardboard, or I've got a little sticker over there which I'm going to stick them in each of the corners so that I know where they came from. Oh, I love the smell of motor oil, especially used motor oil. I don't know why. Oh, fucking idiot, somebody put the washer on the wrong way around. That's highly good, isn't it? So now just give this little tensioner a wobble. It should slide off. I'm just going to put the camera in a better view so you can see better. Go. So take this off just by giving it a wobble, giving it a little wiggle, and eventually it will pop off. Just take your time. It's not always that easy. You know, you just gotta wiggle it piece by piece until it eventually it will literally just pop off. But we'll trim the video down. So slide that off. And there's your cam follower. Right, you notice here, don't know if it will autofocus, but there is an E and an X for exhaust. So make sure you keep that on the bottom, and then the F and S at the top. Don't know what they stand for. Right, so as you can see, the chain is loose. We can literally pull that off now. Hold that to the side. So this is the stock cam. Now these markings on here have got to be parallel with this head when you reinstall it. We're not reinstalling this one, we're going to be using a new one. Now for this part, you can literally notice I've got two dowels, one this side, one up here. I've noticed in the past some engines are different, so hopefully they'll stay in there and we can leave them. But we've literally got two 8mm bolts that are on this side. Crack them off and the head should come away. You can see quite long bolts because they reach all the way down and into the block, or case, whatever you want to call it. Make sure your chain stays relatively tight. And there we go. There's the head. Relatively clean. If we look on the other side, we've got one of the dowel pins is in there. Leave that, and then we'll put the other one in. I'm going to clean all of this up, so I'm going to just get a bit of like an engine degreaser and a wire wheel, and that'll clean that out. So take that off of there, so that's where it's supposed to, so we can keep all of those together. So you've got your two dowels, and then pop that just over in the corner out of the way. Now you'll have your head gasket, which is surprisingly coming off quite easy, until I said that. Right. So, head gasket, not going to use that one, so put that in the bin. Now, here is your bottom chain guide, which is relatively long. Never seen one that long though, but anyway, that's quite evident where that goes. So keep your chain down there, out of the way. Keep that to one side. I'm going to put that along the side. Now you've got one 8mm bolt that's sort of, I think it's that one there. Make sure your piston is top dead center. It just makes it a little bit easier for when you pull the kit off. If you wanted to leave the piston in there, you could do, because you could pull this out so far and then reach the gudgeon pin. That's what we call it in the UK, or a rod pin, whatever you want to call it, piston pin. So we'll pull this off. I'd like to keep that in there, so I'm going to have a go at taking the pin out without actually taking the piston completely out, because just in case I ever have any issues, I could always put this back in if I wanted to. Now, this is your top guide for the chain, which is where your chain tensioner puts pressure on. And let's get to taking this off. Alright, so as you can see here, I've just started pulling the barrel off. Now, you can see in here, there's a little like G-clip pin. Yeah. So what I did is on the other side, because I can get into that a bit better. So I took that pin out, which is this little one here. I literally, all I do to get these out is I use a little screwdriver, put it in, turn it to where I want it, which is towards the top, and then it just prizes out. Very quick and easy. And then we can push the rod pin through from the other side, leaving the other pin in, or clip, or whatever you want to call it. So push that through. I'm actually going to use one of these long bolts from earlier to literally just press on the rod and push it through the other side. And then actually, as you can see here, it will leave the piston in the bore with all the rings. So I can save that for another day. Right, so we have the barrel and piston off, which I've left in there. Very easy to do. Like I said, take the 2 clips out. Now the gasket on here of mine was really like stuck on there. So what I've done is I've used a little knife, if I can find it. Where have I put it? There it is. So I used a little knife like that, just to go around all the edges and then peel it off. And then I had a bit of tissue or rag, just stuffed in the hole like that to stop any debris getting in. Then I used a bit of Scotch-Brite just to clean up these faces, because you want a real nice mating face. Now we can take that out now. Make sure this rod, the bearing that's in there, make sure that's nicely lubed up, and you'll have a dowel pin here and a dowel pin there. So we're ready now to mount the cylinder kit on. Right, so in your taida kit you get, if I can get it out, you get a set of gaskets, and that one is for the, oh, it's obviously not there, but the chain tensioner. Open this up. Excuse me. Right, I have to get that out and come back to you. So, in your taida bore kit, like I said, get gaskets. You see the little clips that you need as well. You get your wrist pin or piston pin or gudgeon pin, whatever you want to call it. Now, so the difference between this kit and the NCY kit is mainly in the piston. So as you can see, this piston is currently installed, so all the rings in that are already done. Obviously you keep the in for the inlet, which is obviously the top side of the engine. So that basically slides on. We'll push the piston down so that it protrudes through the, sort of like just so at the end of here, so that we can easily install it onto our rod. So that will be the next step, and I'll come back to you once that's done. Right, so now that we've got the cylinder on, the piston's in, we've got the gudgeon pin through and then the 2 little clips. Just make sure that they're seated in there correctly, give them a good push and a wiggle, make sure they're not going anywhere, and then just pull the chain through. I used a bolt just to hold it there, and then literally just nice and gently wiggle it home. Once it's all in place, we'll put the 8mm bolt through here, hold it in place, and then we can start buckling up all the head and stuff. Right, so now we've got the bore kit on and we've put the 8mm in here. You then have to slide your chain guide in, and it's the one with the ridges on the top, so that you can basically, so it guides the chain like so. You have to put that in before you put your head gasket on, and then literally hold that down and put your chain through, And then we're ready for the cylinder head. Make sure the chain comes through as you do it. And just wiggle it home. It should be pretty well seated. So once we got that on, you've got your two 8mm, sorry, not 8mm, M6s, these longer ones. Those two go down in there, which bolt that together. And then we can fit this along with obviously the cam. So I've got an aftermarket cam here, which is an NCY cam. I think it's an A8. I'll check the part number in a minute and we can go from there. So you pop this in. This top hole that you can see here, and these two smaller holes, that hole points out at you. And the reason is so you can have the cam lobes down, so they're not putting pressure on the carrier, basically not putting pressure on the valves. Okay, and your piston must be at top dead center, which is the T on your flywheel. So the next day, my battery ran out, so I couldn't record the rest of it. So obviously put the cylinder head on, and then just put the cam on obviously, and put all the chain on and make sure it was in time. Now if you want to see how that was done, go over to the Ruck shop. They've got a really detailed video on how to do all those settings and make sure that your bike is in time. Now I've masked the engine up, so all the bits that I don't want painting, masked it up, ready for paint, and I basically just hung it with some hooks, and we're going to start painting it today. Right, so lighting's pretty bad because it's getting dark. As you can see, the engine is all painted up, so it's like a nice gloss black all over. Yes, I've done inside the CVT, I know, but I'm not using the kickstart bit, and I've masked up all the bits that I needed to. We've done underneath, masked the barrel up, masked everything up that I didn't need or didn't want to paint. Now there is, that's painted, so that can dry. I'm waiting for the frame to come back, so once the frame's back I can start piecing that engine together. We've got the 11 pole stator to put on, and we've also got a new clutch kit, variator setup, all of that sort of thing. So I'll take you through how I install them, which is pretty straightforward, and we'll get the bike up and running again. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.